picture this. A London funeral in 1967.
Okay.
A simple factory worker is being laid to rest.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The mourners are all Polish veterans in full military regalia.
Really makes you think, huh?
Yeah. Who was this man?
Exactly.
Well, that's where we begin our deep dive today.
Okay.
With Stanislaw Sosabowski.
Sosabowski.
A man who led not one but two incredible lives.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating contrast.
It is.
Almost a paradox, you could say.
Yeah.
The quiet life after the war.
Right.
And then the whirlwind of wartime heroism.
Yeah.
There's just this depth to his story.
Yeah,
I understand that depth.
Yeah. We need to go back to World War II.
Okay.
To a pivotal moment.
Oh.
Operation Market Garden.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure you've heard of it.
Of course.
That audacious plan to end the war quickly.
Audacious is putting it mildly.
Right.
Maybe a bit too optimistic looking back, you know?
Right. And that overconfidence really set the stage for what was to come.
Definitely.
So we have Montgomery,
right,
the architect of this grand plan, eager to push through. And then we have General Browning, leading the British 1st Airborne Division, playing a critical role in carrying it out.
Yes.
But then there's Sosabowski, heading the 1st Polish Independent Parachute Brigade.
Right.
He's the one with that incredible military mind.
Yeah.
But also, as we'll see, a deep unease about the whole operation.
It's crucial to remember that Sosabowski wasn't some novice, you know, just plucked from obscurity.
Right.
He was a seasoned military strategist.
I see.
He had served in the Polish army long before the war.
Okay.
And when war did break out, he was instrumental in forming and training the Polish Parachute Brigade.
Oh, wow.
But he agreed to do it on one condition.
What's that?
His men would fight solely for the liberation of their homeland.
Poland.
Poland, exactly.
Which makes what happened next even more perplexing.
It really does.
Montgomery decides to place the Polish brigade under British command.
I see.
Even though Sosabowski objected quite strongly.
Oh, wow.
Why on earth would he agree to that?
Yeah, why would he?
Especially after his initial stipulation.
It was a classic dilemma, you know?
Yeah.
Caught between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
If he refused, his brigade would be cut off.
Right.
No supplies.
Oh, wow.
No support from the British.
Right.
And that would cripple any chance they had of contributing to the liberation of Poland.
Right.
The very thing that drove Sosabowski.
Right.
So he made a difficult choice.
Yeah.
You could say the lesser of two evils.
Right.
He put the needs of his men
and
the bigger picture ahead of his own personal reservation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here you have this incredibly skilled leader.
Yeah.
Forced to operate within a system he doesn't fully agree with.
Right.
And as we'll discover, his concerns about Operation Market Garden weren't just gut feelings.
Right.
He was keenly aware of the risks involved.
Yeah.
He understood the German military capabilities.
He did.
Better than many. And he even had access to intelligence reports from the Dutch resistance.
Okay.
Warning of the presence of not one, but two Waffen-SS Panzer divisions near Arnhem.
Now, for those who might not be familiar with the term, these Waffen-SS Panzer divisions were essentially the elite armored units of the German army. They were highly trained, well-equipped, and known for their ferocity in combat. Sosabowski knew that facing such a force would be a daunting task, to say the least.
And there's this striking quote attributed to him where he directly challenges Browning.
Really?
Asking, do you really think the Germans are fools?
Wow.
It really encapsulates his frustration.
Yeah.
With the overly optimistic assumptions of the Allied command.
Right. They seem to think they could just waltz through enemy territory without any significant resistance.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, wasn't quite the case.
That quote really speaks volumes about his personality, doesn't it?
It does.
He was a man who valued realism and preparedness above blind optimism.
Absolutely.
And as we'll see, his foresight would prove to be tragically accurate. But despite his reservations, Sosabowski still threw himself into preparing his men for Operation Market Garden.
Of course.
But then fate, or perhaps logistics, intervened due to a combination of bad weather
and
a shortage of transport aircraft. The Polish brigade's deployment was delayed.
I see.
And that added another layer of complexity in operation that was already teetering on the edge of risky.
Those repeated delays really highlight the logistical nightmare that such a large-scale airborne operation entailed.
Right.
Remember, this was the largest of its kind at the time.
Right.
Coordinating the movement of troops and equipment over such distances was a monumental undertaking.
Wow.
And as we see here, prone to all sorts of unforeseen complications. It's no wonder that things started to unravel, even before the first paratrooper hit the ground. And those delays really had a significant knock-on effect, you know? By the time the Polish brigade finally arrived, the element of surprise was gone, and the Germans, they were waiting for them, ready to put up a fight.
It was on the 5th day of the operation. That Sosabowski and part of his brigade finally boarded those Dakota transport planes. 114 of them.
Wow.
Headed for Driel, a town just south of the Rhine. What was meant to be this quick, decisive strike was already facing some serious hurdles.
It almost feels like the operation was cursed from the start. You know? Each setback compounded the last, pushing them further and further away from that initial vision of a swift victory.
And it doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
Flying over the North Sea, some of the Dakotas get orders to turn back.
The
weather's taking a turn for the worse.
Makes sense.
But get this. Due to some communication snafu, only 41 planes actually received the message.
Oh, wow.
The rest just kept on going towards Driel.
Really?
Out of the intended 1,500 Polish paratroopers, only 950 ended up jumping.
Wow. Talk about chaos. It's a stark reminder of how even the most sophisticated plans can be completely derailed by something as simple as miscommunication. And in the context of war, those miscommunications can have devastating consequences.
Even the jump itself was fraught with danger.
Oh, really?
Sosabowski, who was 52 at the time,
52.
Jumped right alongside his men.
Wow. Can you imagine? Witnessing a Dakota's engines bursting into flames while paratroopers were still jumping out?
It's crazy.
He landed amidst heavy German machine gun fire. A testament to the sheer bravery of these soldiers.
It really makes you question what it must have been like to be in that moment. The adrenaline. The fear. The knowledge that at any second your life could be on the line.
Absolutely.
These were men of extraordinary courage.
They were.
Facing almost unimaginable circumstances.
And it wasn't just enemy fire they had to contend with. Imagine landing in scattered locations, fields, orchards, even ditches, with your parachute riddled with bullet holes.
Oh my gosh.
They had to regroup and organize themselves under intense pressure.
Absolutely. And their objective was to link up with the British paratroopers north of the Rhine, who were desperately clinging onto that Rhine bridge. 2 German SS Panzer divisions were bearing down on them.
I see.
The plan was to cross the river using a ferry at Driel.
Oh, okay.
But that's where they hit another snag. Enter Cora Baltussen. She was a Dutch nurse. But more importantly, she was one of the few people in the area who could speak fluent English.
Cora's role in the story is absolutely pivotal. She became this vital link between the Polish paratroopers and the Dutch resistance, acting as a translator and providing invaluable support.
Wow.
Her accounts of what happened offer a truly unique perspective on the whole operation.
And she brought some devastating news.
What's that?
The ferry was gone.
The ferry was gone.
The ferrymen had cut the cables to stop the Germans from using it.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense strategically. But for the Polish brigade, it was a major blow.
This is where the strategic implications of losing that ferry become really apparent. It wasn't just a minor inconvenience. It was a critical piece of the puzzle that had been ripped away without the ferry. Their ability to reinforce the British troops north of the Rhine was severely compromised.
So Sosabowski, ever a resourceful leader, ordered his men to dig in around Driel and set up their headquarters in a farmhouse.
I see.
But the Germans weren't just going to sit back and watch.
Of course not.
They quickly realized the threat posed by these Polish paratroopers. So they diverted a substantial force.
Okay.
We're talking over 2,400 men and tanks.
Wow.
To contain them.
The irony is, these were reinforcements. Originally intended to attack the British paratroopers at Oosterbeek the next day.
Oh, wow.
Without realizing it.
Right.
Sosabowski and his men were buying their British counterparts. Yeah. Some very valuable time.
That's almost a twist of fate, isn't it?
It is.
Their presence, even though delayed and hampered by all these setbacks, was actually having a ripple effect on the entire operation.
On the entire operation.
Even if it wasn't immediately obvious.
Right. And meanwhile, Sosabowski is desperately trying to figure out how to get his men across that river to their British allies.
He did get some support.
Okay.
A British intelligence officer swam across the Rhine to brief him on the situation at Oosterbeek.
Right.
And eventually, they were provided with some rubber boats.
Some rubber boats!
But let's be realistic.
Yeah.
Rubber boats are hardly the ideal way to transport troops and supplies across a wide, fast-flowing river, especially when you're under constant enemy fire.
It really underscores the logistical shortcomings of Operation Market Garden. Yeah. Despite the ambitious scale of the operation, the planning and execution seem to have fallen short in some crucial areas.
Yeah.
They simply weren't equipped to handle the realities of the situation on the ground.
And the first attempt to cross the river on the night of September 22nd was a complete disaster.
A disaster.
The Germans were using magnesium flares to light up the river, turning those rubber boats into easy targets.
Oh, gosh.
They inflicted heavy casualties.
Right.
And only 52 Polish paratroopers actually made it to the other side.
It must have been a crushing blow for Sosabowski and his men.
He must have.
Imagine the frustration of knowing you have the will, the courage, the determination to fight, but you're being held back by factors beyond your control.
But they didn't give up.
They didn't.
The next night they tried again.
Okay.
This time they used larger rubber boats.
Right.
But they had to carry them over a dike.
Over a dike.
And launch them under heavy fire.
Oh, wow.
It was absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Many boats were destroyed.
Wow.
Before they even reached the water.
Accounts say that Sosabowski, witnessing the carnage, was brought to tears by the losses his men were suffering.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of war, these were human beings.
They were.
With families, with hopes and dreams.
Of course.
With lives that were being cut tragically short.
Absolutely.
Sosabowski's emotional response speaks volumes about the kind of leader he was.
It does.
Someone who cared deeply for his men.
Yeah.
By morning, the operation was called off.
Called off?
Despite their valiant efforts.
Right.
Only a little over 200 Polish paratroopers had made it across the Rhine.
Sosabowski was furious.
As he should have been.
And rightfully so.
Right.
He blamed the British for not having the foresight to provide proper landing craft for such a vital part of the operation.
Yeah.
His anger is completely understandable.
It is.
He and his men were risking their lives, displaying incredible courage, and yet they were being hampered by logistical failures that could have been avoided with better planning.
Yeah.
It's a classic example of how the decisions made at the top can have devastating consequences for those on the ground.
It's heartbreaking to think about what those Polish paratroopers must have gone through.
It is.
They faced incredible odds, fought with bravery.
They did.
And yet were let down by the very people who were supposed to support them.
And amidst all that chaos and suffering, there was Cora. She continued to help in any way she could.
Wow.
Offering aid and comfort to the wounded Polish paratroopers in trial. Right.
One story she shared really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It was about a dying paratrooper.
Oh, wow.
Who, in his final moments, asked her to deliver a message of love to his family back in Poland.
Oh, my.
His last words were, "All men are brothers."
That's such a powerful message.
It is.
Especially considering the brutality of war.
Absolutely.
Cora's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
It really is.
Finding compassion.
Right.
Even in the face of immense suffering.
But as the operation unraveled, the blame game began.
Seems like a common theme in history, doesn't it?
It does.
After a defeat, those in power often scramble to protect their own reputations.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means finding a scapegoat.
And tragically, that's exactly what happened to Sosabowski.
On September 24th, the 8th day of the operation, he was called to a meeting with several British generals in a village called Valberg.
You can almost feel the tension in the air.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
The seating arrangement spoke volumes.
What do you mean?
The British commanders were all seated on one side of a long table with a single chair placed opposite them.
Right?
For Sosabowski.
Wow.
It was like they were putting him on trial.
The meeting was led by General Thomas. And he laid out the plan for that evening. 2 major Allied crossings of the Rhine. First, a battalion of the 4th Dorset Regiment, followed by a battalion of Polish paratroopers. The chosen location, the ferry landing stage at Dreil-Hevedorp.
Now, if you recall our discussion about the importance of that ferry, you can already see where this is going.
Exactly. And Sosabowski saw it too.
He did?
He was appalled.
Really?
The chosen location would expose the attacking troops to withering German fire.
Oh, no.
From heavily fortified positions on a steep hill.
He argued for a flanking maneuver further west.
Makes sense.
To avoid the most heavily defended area.
Right.
Once again. Sosabowski's tactical acumen was on full display. He understood the terrain. He understood the enemy. And he was trying to prevent a disaster waiting to happen.
But his suggestions were dismissed.
They were.
He was told in no uncertain terms that orders are orders.
You can only imagine how frustrated and helpless he must have felt.
That meeting at Valberg becomes a real turning point in the story.
It does.
It's the moment when Sosabowski's warnings, his expertise, are completely ignored.
It's
setting the stage for the tragedy that followed.
That evening, the crossing unfolded exactly as he had feared.
The British troops, attempting to cross in 9 rubber boats and 3 amphibious vehicles, were met with a devastating hail of machine gun fire.
Oh, no.
The losses were so severe that the operation was quickly abandoned. Even General Horrocks, who commanded the British forces during that crossing, later admitted in his memoirs that the attack should have been launched further west. Just as Sosabowski had suggested.
It's a tragic irony.
It is.
That the very advice that could have saved lives was disregarded. Sosabowski wasn't being insubordinate. He was trying to prevent needless bloodshed.
Operation Market Garden had descended into this costly, chaotic mess. And now the Polish brigade was tasked with covering the British retreat across the Rhine.
They faced intense German fire yet again, suffering heavy casualties.
Of the thousands of British paratroopers who had landed at Arnhem, only a fraction managed to escape.
And then, as if the weight of the failed operation wasn't enough, another blow struck. News reached them that the Warsaw Uprising, the valiant rebellion by the Polish resistance, had been brutally crushed. That was the fight. Sosabowski and his men had longed to participate in the liberation of their homeland. To be denied that opportunity and then to witness its tragic end must have been absolutely devastating.
And in the aftermath of Operation Market Garden, the search for a scapegoat began in earnest.
He did.
Field Marshal Montgomery, desperate to salvage his reputation, pointed the finger squarely at the Polish brigade. Accusing them of cowardice. And ineffectiveness.
It was a blatant distortion of the truth.
It's a sad but all too familiar pattern.
It is.
Instead of acknowledging the flaws in the planning and execution of the operation, those in charge chose to shift the blame onto those who were least able to defend themselves. Sosabowski, who had already been marginalized throughout the operation, was now being vilified.
He was relieved of his command.
He was.
Given a meaningless desk job. And denied any recognition for his bravery.
Oh my God.
Or the sacrifices made by his men.
To add insult to injury, the treatment he received was far harsher
than
that of many German generals he had fought against. It highlights a real injustice at the heart of the post-war period.
But even in the face of this betrayal, there were those who recognized Sosabowski's true worth.
There were.
Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands, deeply grateful for the sacrifices made by the Polish paratroopers.
Of course.
Tried to have him honored.
She did.
Unfortunately, bureaucratic obstacles and resistance from the British prevented her efforts from succeeding.
It's a testament to her character that she tried to right this wrong.
It is.
Even if it meant going against powerful forces. She saw the injustice of the situation. And couldn't stand idly by. And Korobultusin never gave up either. She tirelessly campaigned for recognition of the Polish contribution to the Battle of Arnhem. Giving interviews. Writing letters. Even appealing directly to Queen Wilhelmina.
She became a tireless advocate for these unsung heroes.
Sosabowski, stripped of his command, lived out the rest of his days as a factory worker in London. Stateless and without a military pension.
It was a quiet, unassuming life.
It was.
A stark contrast to the heroism he had displayed during the war. He passed away in 1967. Never having set foot in his beloved Poland again.
It's a poignant reminder.
It is.
That sometimes the greatest heroes are those who face adversity with quiet dignity. Even when they've been wronged by the very people they fought to defend. But his story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
Years later, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, in one of his final interviews, spoke out about the injustice done to Sosabowski and his men, calling for their recognition. And that's when things started to change.
It's often the case that true recognition comes far too late.
It is.
Long after those who deserve it have passed away. But Prince Bernhard's intervention was crucial in bringing Sosabowski's story back into the light.
In 2006, Sosabowski was posthumously awarded the Virtuti Militari, Poland's highest military decoration.
The Dutch government also awarded him the Bronzen Leeuw for his courage and leadership. And the Polish brigade as a whole received the Militair Willemsorde, the Netherlands' highest military honor.
Those awards, while they couldn't fully erase the past, served as a powerful symbol.
They did.
Acknowledging the bravery and sacrifice of these men.
Their story, overshadowed for so long by controversy and neglect, was finally given the recognition it deserved.
It's just bittersweet that Korobultusin, who had fought so hard for that recognition, passed away just 3 weeks before the Dutch awards were presented.
Oh, wow.
Her absence was a poignant reminder.
It was.
Of her unwavering dedication to Sosabowski and his men.
It's a fitting end to this complex and moving story.
It is.
Justice might have been delayed. But it wasn't denied. And in the end, the legacy of Sosabowski and his men lives on, inspiring us to remember those who fought for freedom, even when faced with unimaginable challenges.
Sosabowski is buried in Warsaw among his men.
A fitting tribute to a leader who faced triumph and tragedy with unwavering courage and compassion.
His story reminds us that history is often written by the victors.
It is.
But it's up to us to dig deeper. To uncover the untold stories. And to ensure that the sacrifices of those who fought for freedom are never forgotten.
What are your thoughts on Sosabowski's story?
What do you think?
How does it make you reflect on the complexities of war?
The complexities of war.
And the importance of recognizing those who often go unnoticed.
It's a story that stays with you.
It does.
Long after you've heard it.
It challenges us to think critically.
It does.
About how we remember the past. How we honor the sacrifices of those who came before us. And how we ensure that the lessons learned from their experiences are carried forward.
Absolutely.